as kids that Paulina was different. We knew that, like my dad had been told, that don't go down to Paulina's clearing. She's a little weird. She takes her cows to the beach and they muddy the beach up, and just be careful of Paulina. And then later in her life, some of her depression overtook her, and she ends up dying in Connecticut in 1946. And so I love seeing a picture like this where she's, at ease, happy with life, and that's what most of her writing reflects, and that's certainly what this picture reflects. Here she is on the farm. It's now grown in considerably, but there's a pavilion that we put there in the middle of this big field. She had several fields, and the whole clan of people who are now descended from Benjamin Brandreth, an obscene number of people, not obscene, an impressive number of people. If you have a large family, you know what happens after 5 or 6 or 7 generations. There's a large number of people that are there. One of Paulina's grandnieces is here, Cynthia, and so that's really cool. That would be the only person directly descended in that family, family. So it's cool to have you here, Cynthia.
I've heard many stories about my great aunt.
I bet you did. Here's one of her horses running towards us. Here she is with a friend, having on the farm. You can see the fence posts and so forth, having had a successful hunt. And here is what it looks like today in part. There's a well, and those trees are plum trees, and I ate a tiny little rock-like plum last year off them and thought, this is a pretty good reminder of what was happening a long time ago in Paulina's clearing. And here is a classic that we have discovered. It's mislabeled, but it's pretty good anyway. Here's Paulina getting off the train, not at Brandreth, but probably making a change in Utica. And it's so interesting to me because here she is, she's totally duded up, she's got a finery on, she's got a fur coat on, and then it looks like she's ready to get off at Brandreth with her white shirt and necktie and become more of her regular self. Okay, so let's take a minute to look at Paulina's writing just in very general terms. She was really into reminding us how important it is to be outdoors. She all the time is talking about waking up on balsam boughs, just the invigoration of being outside at night, all of these things. She's very, very aware, particularly in her own life, that this is one of the things that keeps her alive, is being outdoors and being active. And she rails against the materialism of the culture. I mean, she really has some troubles with it. Materialism, the God that rules our land today with glittering pomp and glutted eye, the God of gold so hard, so sly, shall make us pay. Bitter will be our cup of wine, our bread will turn to black regret. If gold can teach us to forget that life and love are both divine. So that's one of her good rants, but she's clearly understanding that people are lost in a society that doesn't pay much attention to the outdoors.
Where was she schooled?
So she's schooled in Ossining, New York. Yeah, and it's north of New York City, and it used to be called Sing Sing, that town. And the Sing Sing prison was there, and a lot of the folks who ended up at Brandreth started out in Ossining. Yeah. And in fact, we still have relatives in Ossining, and not many.
No jail?
No, that's a good question. Not in the jail. That's a pretty key question. So she's a storyteller. She loves to talk not just about the deer hunt, but the conversations that are had beforehand. And the fact that Rube, as she calls him, Rube and Carrie, is very much into like playing cards and having unpacking the day after they've been out for a good ramble. She really was one of the foremost experts in the world on whitetails, and that's one of the really memorable things that I take away from this. Wagner, who's an expert in today's society on these matters of hunting, says he has in his library about 2,000 books on deer hunting. Okay, and so he's making the point. Of the 2,000 books on the subject of deer hunting in my library, only 5 are written by women. Not only is Trails of Enchantment the best of this group, but it is one of the best books ever written on the subject of white-tailed deer and deer hunting. So she is the real thing. She loves the deer enough to, and is interested enough to look at their behavior in all seasons, to be sometimes happy that they've outwitted her, and very humble in the fact that you miss, not in the sense of missing the shot, but you miss in terms of actually being able to get to the deer, most of them. She says about 4 out of 5. They just outwit you, or they're crafty, or whatever it is. So she really is into white-tailed deer. The forest itself and her love of trees comes through many, many times, and she's very positive about the fact that there are lots and lots of deer because there's been lumbering, and that the lumbering is a disaster for parts of the ecosystem as well. She has a lot of odes to trees who are about to be cut. She's living that balance of forestry, and there was a lot of cutting done at Brandreth in her lifetime. And then finally, some of her other interests, conservation and this classical theme that I've talked about already. So that sets us up to talk a little bit about her writings. Here's the Trails of Enchantment, 1930, and it has a Canadian artist in the inner cupboard here, which I love that inside piece, and I'm glad that I wrote it down here. Alan Brooks, because I don't have it in my notes. Alan Brooks, interestingly, did this piece in 1930, which leads you to wonder how they got together, because the book is published in 1930. But at any rate, she may have just taken advantage of something that had really gotten her fancy. But it's a beautiful inner cover.
Publisher probably found it.
Yep, publisher Watt was the publisher, and you're right. I agree with that. Now, they're just, every chapter is like a little adventure, and in particular, she's interested in the Shingle Shanty Stream, which is, as you know, kind of a tea-colored stream with all the cannons in the woods around here are coloring many of those streams brown, and she loves the Shingle Shanty Stream and has 2 camps, lean-tos, and sometimes a cabin on the Shingle Shanty Stream. So she tells those tales and tells a few others, including tales about famous people who come to hunt, like General Pershing, and she gets to go on these hunts. This is after World War I. There's some people who are hunting at our camp at Brandreth who were known on the world stage. It's also fun that in the case of Pershing, she writes eloquently about the fact that this guy is the real thing also. He's a crack shot. When he gets a chance, he gets this big buck because he knows what he's doing. The man who's doing some of the guiding in that particular case is Kurt Hall, who is from the Long Lake area. Now I'm going to turn to something local. Okay. 1913. In 1914, she publishes 2 articles on Long Lake, and she's very over the top with her enthusiasm for Long Lake, and I can describe it in several ways, but one is she has finally discovered the town where her mentors are from. In other words, if you grow up in Ossining and you take the train to Utica and then you go up towards Tepper Lake, you're way over to the west of here, and you get off that train and you come into camp, and you know these people from Long Lake, but you never go there until you're 28 years old. This is 2000. This is 1913, and she was born in 1885. So she takes the train to Racket Lake. They get off. It's late. They're already late. The Emersons are waiting for them at the Longview Lodge. They get to the Forked Lake Carry. They have a grumpy driver. They run into, as they go toward North Point, they run into some disabled cars, and they finally, 4 hours late, are welcomed by the Emersons and treated royally there at the lodge. Then, next morning they get up, they go to Buttermilk Falls, starting in a launch, and then they get guide boats, and they go on up toward the falls. They have a great day there. The next day they go to Cold River, and she just has a lot of fun with Long Lake, and here's some of the fun. To begin with, Long Lake is the original stamping ground of the Adirondack pioneers. It was there in bygone days that men of courage and self-sufficiency cut their clearings, built their homes, and made their livelihoods in a raw, uncharted wilderness. Thus it is that Long Lake is strictly Adirondack in every sense of the word. The people who live there are Adirondackers of the best and truest type. From the wilderness that sleeps so close to their doors, they have imbibed a tranquility of existence, a quiet purpose that sets them far above the average. Love it. Long Lake has preserved a flavor of forest quietude which elsewhere lacks entirely. I did not realize how very potent was this influence, nor how much remained of bygone conditions until I came to visit it myself. So that's her first article on Long Lake. There's some of her artwork. See, she was accomplished in many ways. She did that little piece there to accompany the beginning of that article. And then later on in the article, here's Wallace Emerson standing in probably one of his own boats. Cindy and I have one of those boats in the treasure. It's
An old Wallace or a young Wallace?
this would be
Old Wallace.
Old Wallace, right. There's a reference in the next article to his son who goes up Owl's Head with him on a hike.